Hello, welcome to Chewing the Gristle. My name is Al Black and my co-host is the poet Tim Conroy. Tim, welcome.
My brother Al, how you doing today?
Great. The weather, it was beautiful this morning. And our poet today is the poet Emily Davis-Fletcher. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me, Tim and Al. It's a real treat. Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to read her bio and then we'll ask the first question. Emily Davis-Fletcher earned her BFA in creative writing from Stevens College and her MA in women's studies from the National University of Ireland, Galway. She has taught creativity and poetry workshops at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, and the Pat Conroy Literary Center. In 2018, she was selected to read at the Cork International Poetry Festival, and her poem, Sow Calling, was a finalist in the Sublingua Prize for Poetry 2019. Currently, Emily is writing her debut poetry manuscript, My Half of Night. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
So tell us about your poetry education and journey and who were your influences?
I definitely think it's definitely my mom. I think not that my mom ever wrote poetry, but my mom was very accepting of me being a very communicative, talkative child. She would say that like I would just tell stories and just running them on and on and on. And I can remember like as a child, like being 6 and having some questions about God and just being confused. I went to Catholic school and just trying to write a poem about like this big question of God and nature. And I was 6 and I'm sure it was horrible, but I think I sort of came in. I think I came in sort of being a wordy person and a person that really used words to like express how I feel and like question things through words. And I would write book reports and they would be longer than the book themselves in school, you know? So yeah, that's how it sort of started.
Okay. And during that early time or even now, who as poets motivated you to want to emulate them?
Yeah, I can remember, I mean, definitely feeling simpatico with like Sylvia Plath, and Sexton, those two, just that freedom about writing about your life and like painful things and not being ashamed of that, not being embarrassed or ashamed. And that, so they were really inspirations. And you know, either that everyday kind of boring stuff to focus on that or painful things. And I think that's where my poetry is back and forth between like the mundane and bringing out like the extraordinary in that, and then looking at the painful and like what trying to create meaning and from that.
How would you describe your poetry style?
I think I just look at I just try to sift through experiences through memory and really put myself in my body and the senses. Like a lot of imagery. I think that's the way that I try to make sense of things. And that's the poets I enjoy the most, are the poets that they're really just putting you there in the body, in the senses, not really answering any like big questions, or giving you big statements about life or what's going on in their lives and their world, but just letting you see it through what they're seeing, observing, and feeling. That's what I try to do. And then let the reader just interpret based on these images you're given and the emotion that's carried in those images.
Hey, Emily, how do you prepare? I love to talk about the rituals of writing and how a writer does it, whether it's in the morning or whether it's at night or whether it's, outside or how do you prepare your body, your spirit, your mind? What are the rituals you do to draft a poem?
Well, I took this workshop with Heather Sellers a few years ago at the Sun Retreat, and it was all about like how to manage the stress of writing. And it was so liberating to hear another, well-established writer say like 90% of the work of writing is managing the stress, managing the emotions, because what we're doing is creating anything is like kind of chaotic and we don't know what we're doing. It's like a lot of uncertainty. So she said, she definitely recommended what you said, like prepare the body, like relax the body. So that's in the last like 3 years since I heard that from her. Like I do try to remind myself before I write, because I know I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know. So I can feel that anxiety start to come up. And that's what I'll do. I'll like meditate or maybe do like some acupressure points around like to open the heart. Because like in lots of spiritual traditions, they say the heart is the center for creativity. So yeah, going for a walk is amazing to get you out of your head, that's like that critic that's like, you don't know what you're doing. This isn't good enough, that, or even like whatever's going on in your day, a shopping list, just to go and put yourself in your body and relax the body.
So do you write with a pen, pencil? Do you keyboard? Do you, how do you do it? Do you have what's your formal practice like?
My formal practice, I definitely will write with my first draft. Generally is done with a pen, or if there's a pencil around, and a notebook, because Julia Cameron recommends how writing is an embodied practice, and to first write with your hand, like physically feeling the hand across the page and the sound of that and everything. The body's getting more connected, the senses are receiving data, versus just being technology based. And so that's what I try to do. But then revising, I usually do go to the computer then. But and I'm a night owl, so I don't really start waking up like this. I don't usually start waking up until after 7. I'm like slowly charging through the day. So I'm a night owl. So usually evening, make sure I relax the body or go for a walk or something like that. And usually start with a question. I mean, sometimes if it's another thing Heather Sellers recommend, and it's helped me, is like, there's a story you want to put down, but you've told yourself that quite often, like over and over, that writing can be very dull and you won't be a place of discovery. Like you want to start from a place of discovery. So what really confuses you? What is like shadowy? What do you think you don't remember or don't know? And write from there.
Well, this would be a great time to hear a couple of your poems.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, so this first poem is it's the title of the book. It's My Half of Night. The book I'm in the process of writing. My half of night. I listened to crickets all night, like a lock on a box of secrets. On my right, books spread out in bed, their corners curling. I want to call you, discover where your toes point now. A blue notebook touts 5 subjects in place of your head tossing on the pillow. I asked what you were thinking once, feeling your heart slow to a circling hawk. You'll never get inside my head, you said. There's some poetry, self-help, feathered light and solid colors. A dictionary from 1971 reminds me of pedantic, the meaning I heard back at your bedsit a few hours after we met. A squiggle of tobacco on your bottom lip, hard cider on my breath. Old friend from far away is open, prompting me to write about nuts. Oil from my hands leaves permanent shadows on pages, not like your body with my cuts on bone. Wherever you are, your half of night is sawn by jagged breathing. If you sleep on your good ear, we'll hear nothing when the lock breaks.
That's incredible. Let's hear another.
Thank you. Next poem is Wash House. So this is one of those things that, yeah, it's from a childhood memory. Wash House. The man, not yet my stepdad, cuts power and chokes the phone before driving off in one long scab of a truck, ripping up gravel at the sunset, and Mom, her brother dead since March, her belly hardening round a boy, her naming people who died of a broken heart. I miss cartoons, watch shadows bruise the wall till she is silent long enough for me to come down, search closets and dark slices behind doors. I find her walking barefoot in the horseshoe drive, her skirt turned up into a red bowl, sagging below her knees. I step out in socks. The screen door smacks, makes her jump, spill a collection of rocks. I stand for her cuss or plead to run for help, but she bends to fill her skirt again with dead seeds as branches let go easily of birds and leaves. She stands to face his wash house with its rusted roof and splintered door, cocked towards his pigs, slack barn, the sun's hysteric escape through trees. She unlocks her fist, a window shrieks, then holds its breath in shock. She unlocks her fist again, knocking out teeth as I come closer, to silences and screams that shatter, jars of screws chewed down with Indian head pennies, blow open cracked smiles of porcelain dolls, spill rusted coffee cans of crusted fish hooks, burst balls of burned out Christmas lights, stir wasps from mud hives like pupils fleeing swollen eyes to take in more light than the scraps thrown over his shoulder once a month when he sits in the doorway, crushing a mountain of beer cans, one husk at a time.
Terrific. Brother Al.
Yeah, I'm still taking in the poem. Very good poem. So let's talk about revision. How much revision do you use? And are you ever finished with a poem?
I mean, it really varies. I feel like I'm addicted to the flow, chasing that flow where something comes out so easily and smoothly. And when you sit there to write and it comes out pretty complete, but then that doesn't happen to me too often. Like it can happen in a, not that I feel like it doesn't need to be redrafted. Yes, I can have a really nice writing practice like that where I'm in the flow, but then there's so much. I've written 3 or 4 pages and I have to like whittle that down. I'll read a poem in a little bit that did come out like in like a few hours of just sitting, but somehow that was after acupuncture session. And the guy said he might have opened me up too much to my creative. So I wish that would happen more, but I can get caught though. And this is that struggle with the inner critic of like redrafting and being like, it's not done. I do try to remind myself of Natalie Goldberg's advice that try to stay to, don't get too far away from like that original, that first burst of writing. But there's so much freshness and life in that. And I know that if I draft too much, but it's really an intuitive process. I don't know, some of my favorite poems are after 14 drafts, and then others, like I said, maybe just 1 or 2 drafts. But yeah, it's strange. I'll probably never, writer your whole life, and you won't know like how does this work? It'll be different every time.
So, what poets are you reading now, and who is fueling Emily's imagination?
Well, I'm always, I run a poetry workshop on Sundays with different poets, and I try to bring in different stuff for us to read or be open to what they're listening to. I've really gotten interested in like James Tate's poetry, the absurd, and again, very like imagery based and absurd, but then and can kind of start out playful, but then has a darker meaning and message in it. But you can go in gently at first, which is what I need to do with my writing process as well. Like go in gently before I get to something more painful. I'm reading Poet X, that like poetry novel. I'm gonna botch her last name. I'm so terrible with names. It's Elizabeth. She's a Dominican American poet. So I'm reading that, and that's quite inspiring because it's a female voice, a young female voice, and it's going through her teenage years in New York City and struggling with female sexuality and her budding love of poetry and having a teacher kind of see that in her and nurture that. So, and that's kind of what I want to do with my collection. I want it to be this one sort of voice that matures over time. That's what I'm going for, like from childhood through adulthood, and you see that the empowerment that happens through the acceptance of like one's journey not being perfect, making mistakes, but coming to like accept yourself and all these different sides and imperfections. Yeah.
It was I think it was Elizabeth Avocado or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Can you share a couple more poems with us, please?
Yes, definitely.
Wonderful.
Okay, so the next poem, this one is Menses, and this one, but it's so funny though, like this did, like I said, it came out quite smoothly, effortlessly, it seemed like, and just a flowing writing session, and it felt complete. But saying that, I can remember this poem started with a line that was years before it came to me. And so it was maybe been gestating in my mind and body for 5 years. So I don't know. Menses. You smell like you've been shot down the barrel of a gun. An outlaw slipping off your horse, hauling a mix of rain and sunset, and time to answer prayers and save me, the little lady, from myself, or what the law allows. No life or godless cells cluster in your wake as you set fire to my velvet curtains and cut out with a cache of rubies like plucked hearts, so I never suspect a homemaker in a killer disguise who cleans and warms the place.
Wow.
Yeah, that's terrific.
I usually introduce that by saying this is not about John Wayne.
No, it's not.
Let's dig into your craft a little bit. And I know we've talked a little bit about this when we talked about your style, but what are the poetic elements you tend to rely on, and which ones don't you use?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really lean on imagery, and maybe at times, like this is why a writing group is so valuable, because in your mind, it makes sense and everything, and sometimes it can be like too much imagery, and it's like one image after another bleeding into another, and it's almost like can be a bit much. And so I definitely need other people always as part of my revision process. I should have mentioned that before, how vital feedback is from other writers or people who are interested in poetry. Not that I have poet friends that really can get blocked at that stage when they get the feedback, because you'll get contradictory feedback. So I do I'm lucky in the sense that maybe at times, like the writing process, it's not always intuitive if I'd like it to be, but definitely my revision process after I've gotten feedback from people, that's a very intuitive process. It's like either, aha, I see where that's better. And if I can't see quickly that it's better, I just usually let it go. But always getting other people's feedback is so important. And so imagery, yes, I think that's my main one. I know I've had my manuscript sent off to an editor, and line break is where I fall down on line break, and so I've been trying to study that more and see how line how other poets use it to like create more meaning and depth to their writing and unusual, just an added meaning and layers by where you break a line. And so I need to play around with that more for sure, because I can just sort of I can just stop at the end of a phrase and not try to be, just create that extra texture and meaning. But so it's good. It's great to have people show you like, these are your strengths. This is kind of what you need some help on, and only if you agree. Like I said, I don't recommend like letting this block you and get frustrating. But
so what are the elements you tend to avoid? You know that they're not for you.
Well, I don't know if there's anything I tend to avoid. I just see this pattern in my writing that's so imagery based, a lot of figurative language, simile, metaphor. I feel like I'm somewhat lucky that way, that I've had people say, "Oh, you are a natural metaphor maker." That's just somehow how my brain works. Other people are so great with dialogue and characterization, and see, I'm lucky. Like, I just write about myself, so I don't have to struggle with like, who is this character or this speaker in the poem? Who really are they? It's me. Even when I write about other people, it's like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, so hopefully that doesn't mean I'm a narcissist. I don't think so, but
sounds like you're a poet to me.
Yeah, I'm just like really
dazzled. How important is faith, travel, geography to your poetry?
I think it's just whatever is in your life. That's the material. That's what you work with. So even if you like, I've been fortunate. I was able to live in Ireland, and not that it was always an easy going time, but I was able to get out of the States and go somewhere where but anywhere you can go where there's a different spin on things, a different take, that you can see the world in a new way. I mean, that's what we want to do with poetry. But you don't have to go away to do that at all. I mean, just try to put yourself in another perspective, especially like I like to go weird in my poetry, and I've had instructors recommend that, right from that perspective of those old sneakers hanging on the line. And again, like I said, it always comes back to me, but just whatever's in your life is what you're going to work with, and it'll be brilliant because you've turned your attention to that, and that's an act of love. And it's not going to be, it won't be boring for somebody else. If it's exciting for you, it's going to excite your reader if it's something that you are curious about. And
I'm interested in whether because you're writing a lot about your personal experiences and how you're feeling about the world, do you do much research for your poetry, or do you find yourself you don't need to do it?
Yes, I don't do much research in my poetry, but I've had instructors say that if you find yourself writing about an animal or a certain type of mushroom or something in the natural world, like, go and research that. And it won't necessarily end up in your poetry, but it could add something. And I have noticed that, so I don't consider it research. Like, sometimes like animals show up in my poetry, ants. I didn't realize it actually until I sent it to this editor, and she was like, there's lots of animals and shape shifting in your work. She saw things that I didn't even see, which is pretty cool. Another reason why I recommend having other people look at your work. And so I would go back and like kind of research that. But again, I was just reading for pleasure. But then it did inform like how I would then write about that animal later. Like, for some reason, a lot of times when ants come into my work, I'll somehow link it to patience. And because I remember reading in a book by Animal Speak by Ted Andrews that some of the characteristics and symbolism for ant was around patience and waiting and hard work and things coming to fruition over time. So definitely, I mean, but I don't know, that's just like anything you take in your life, whether you want to call that research or just living, and it'll inform your work for sure.
Hey, Brother Al, jump in.
Okay. Often folks have resources or books or processes that help them in their writing. Um, do you have resources or books that you use to help yourself or your students as an instructor in the writing process?
Absolutely, absolutely. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron was life-changing. You know, that journey, using that book to take a journey to like self-discovery, tap into your creativity more in a very playful, fun way. Because this, I think I read that about 10 years ago, and I felt very blocked, even though I'd done a BFA in creative writing. You know, you think, okay, you did a BFA, 4 years, you're ready, you're going to be a writer. But I just still had all these insecurities and doubts, which I think writers at any stage, I've heard, you know, very established, like Heather Sellers, very established writers say that it's still coming to the blank page is daunting. You just feel like a beginner each time, you know. So any of those books that like lots of books by Natalie Goldberg I've used, Writing Down the Bones, Old Friend from Far Away, which I mentioned in that first poem, My Half of Night, is like a book being on my bed that I like to keep around to do writing prompts, and just that voice from other writers that's like, you can do it. It's okay to be scared and nervous, and here are some techniques to, you know, make this a little bit lighter as you go through the process of writing. So definitely Julia Cameron. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert was quite helpful. And another writer at the summer retreat recommended looking at your writing like a spiritual practice. And that took a lot of pressure off, because I think we don't have these expectations for maybe whatever we find as our spiritual practice, going for a walk, doing yoga, meditation. But it feeds your soul just like your writing or whatever your creative, whatever your art is. And that's helped. So I do try to go to a lot of these classes around, or read these books that are like how to make the practice more fun and playful. And this is what I try to pass on to my students, because I know we're all, you know, this is the soul's work, right? So at times it can be light and joyful and easy, and other times it's like can be a bit scary and hard, and you feel like you're doing it alone as a writer. And that's another reason why I think like getting involved in writers groups is so valuable, so you have that support.
Okay, that's a wonderful answer, and you brought some new books to our attention.
Which is always good, But what advice would you give to the emerging poet about working through the process, the frustration of trying to get better?
I'm trying to get better. I would say don't focus on getting better. Set your intention on being authentic. And what that means is just being really true to your story, like what your feelings were, like the emotional truth, not like the fact of what happened if you're writing about something that happened. But yeah, just striving to really let yourself be known, or this character be known, the speaker of the poem, whatever it is, getting over that fear of really being vulnerable and going there. And that's why I think it's so important to like relax the body first and really nurture yourself as a writer. Take time and trust that I just looked out the window today most of the day. I didn't actually write today. Well, that's okay. That's part of the process. It's like being out in the world or looking at the world, observing, looking closely. But get really comfortable with like your inner world. Accept it. Try to turn that critic off. Find ways to turn that critic off.
Hey, Emily, do you have a supportive writing group that you're in?
Mm-hmm. I do. Yeah. I've been very fortunate that in Ireland I found one. And I mean, that's outside of the books and the spiritual work and everything. The writing group has been a huge part of me, like being more creative, expanding my scope as a writer. So many opportunities came from my writers groups, opportunities to judge things, But just getting that feedback and reading other people's work makes you a better writer too, because you're seeing like, oh, well, what worked in theirs? Where am I not really connecting with this work? How could it be better? So you're thinking critically about how to make something more effective. And so that's going to influence your work. So yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've had over 10 years, like really one groups in Ireland to now I'm in like 3 groups here. It's almost, am I addicted to groups? I don't know, but I definitely, they're so helpful. And it's you have to be careful though, who reads your work. This is Julia Cameron says that too, that especially emerging writers, you can get shut down if the feedback is harsh or something. So first show your work to people you really trust and maybe start there.
Well, I don't think I've asked this of any poet so far in this series, but what advice would you give to a poet about giving a critique to another poet?
Oh, I'm still learning that. That's a learning process from still an ongoing journey, because I'll catch myself sometimes being a little bit harsh, and that's my biggest fear, is that I would make someone shut down. But I've noticed what's effective when I get feedback, or what I strive to do when I get feedback, is the sandwich model of like positive, something really like start out with some positive things, genuine positive things, which you'll always find that in someone's writing. And then put in like your suggestion for what could be changed, improved upon, and then end with something positive as well, something encouraging and positive.
What would you say to the emerging poet? What advice would you give them? If you could think of 1 or 2 things to offer.
Oh my gosh. Just that you can do this. And it's just about following your heart and trusting yourself. And like you said earlier, the question about having faith, you do have faith in yourself. You have to be tenacious. There will be lots of rejections. That's why you need those supports of other writers and books by other writers about how to, walk this path, this creative life, because it can be discouraging. But I've, through advice from Julia Cameron and others, I look at these rejections as like a stepping stone, because I've seen it so many times where I get a rejection and then out of nowhere an opportunity arises. It's like the universe is encouraging you, and what you wanted you might not get, but you'll definitely, what you expected you would get, you might not, or what you'd hope to get, but you will keep growing and expanding if you stay with it and just put in the commitment. Sometimes I say like, oh, it's work, but it's a commitment, because there can be a lot of fun and a lot of joy, like these opportunities to connect with other writers and share my thoughts about poetry and share my poems. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of good stuff. And you were born to do this. You're born to write and share your work.
What advice would you give them about submitting to journals?
The same. I mean, submit. It's a numbers game. Submit to the top journals and submit to your top. And I had an instructor say this, and it's kind of intuitive. It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough to submit to the New Yorker or Poetry Magazine. But when I did that, it was so liberating, because it was like, if I can deal with the rejection from poetry, then I can deal with the rejection from anyone. And also it's a numbers game. I've had instructors say this, oh, once you get published, it's easier to get published, and more come. And I think that is true. It's not necessarily, obviously you're growing as a writer over the time that you're writing and submitting. But the year I submitted, like, I think I committed to like 4 a month. That was like 48 in the end, something like that. That year I'd been in more journals and anthologies than any other year. I think I got like 10 poems published that year, whereas other times I've been like, well, I'll do 1 a month. So it's a numbers game. Just keep doing it. And like I said, with rejection, just trust that there's another opportunity coming your way, because you made the effort.
Emily, when struggling to write, when you're suffering through writer's block for whatever reason, maybe there's just a lot of stuff going on, like now in the world, what advice can you give to the poet?
definitely, sometimes you just might need to go and have fun. Like Julia Cameron says, it's about feeding, you got to feed the well too. You know, when we're writing, we're emptying that, we're giving of ourselves, we're sifting through things, and it's a clearing and releasing. And so just go have fun. Like she says, take yourself on artist dates. And that's what I found when I feel like I just need that shift of energy, that shift of mind, of thinking, of like, that I've got to work and put this out and effort. And no, just go play and go treat yourself and be light and joyful. Go explore something that has interested you for a while that you put off.
Tell us about the projects you're working on now.
I'm still plugging away with my chapbook manuscript, My Half of Night, and I'd love to get it published as a chapbook. And if it doesn't happen, then I'll collect enough poems that it can be a full collection and try to get a full collection published. But right now I have about 30 pages of a chapbook. So still working on that and applying to MFA programs, places where, you know, I want to be there. I want to be immersed in that stimulating culture and have that time and focus to really write. Because again, this what COVID is sort of really made me see clearly, that this is my joy. Like I always, I have not been bored. I've been stressed and I've been fearful during this time, but I've not been bored. I can remember being bored before COVID at work. I work at a shelter. And so it is my passion to an extent, but not like my writing. And I think boredom is probably, I don't want to waste my life in that state, you know? So I want to, this has taught me that this is my joy, really, really my joy, my sanctuary. The times that this has been a hard year, but the times when I'm connecting with other writers, doing workshops, writing, all that outside stuff fades away. And it's just lovely and in the moment and present. And so I think I can have more of that in the MFA program. So I'm applying for those.
Well, please bless us with the joy of 2 more poems.
Thank you. I think I'll read something a bit, I feel like this is a very hopeful poem. It's The Clown Awaits Your Cue. To see him, you must see out of the corners of your eyes, open to possibilities, write love letters and poems, often starting with, where are you? Under your pillow, keep a list of the qualities you want. The river of your dreams carries each inky word off the page. Ask insects to broadcast your signals, especially ants. The world is stitched by ants. Console tree stumps, reassure the limb of a marsh oak that its egret will return. Remind an egret that her branch squints beyond the horizon for her. Solicit the moon to hold your vision. Fold matching socks and leave at the foot of your bed like eggs. Balance a fist-sized cliff of obsidian on your pubic bone. Focus on your circus. Sweep out all the monkeys in their cherry red vests. The one who flicked ash into cans round his bed. The one who only apologized for his harsh laundry detergent. The one whose idea of foreplay was to place your hand on prehistoric shark teeth. Let go of the acrobats who swung out with open arms and dropped you. With deep belly breaths, clear the elephants of fear, wearing scarlet brocade dresses. They trumpet from the shadows that you are not good enough, not worthy, not lovable. Grab fear of being hurt by its scraggly tail and yank hard until you feel the root pop loose. Give the dancing bear of abandonment new music, the Euro's horse stomp, and watch her hips turn a figure 8. Cut the polyester kitten ears from tigers you have caged in your throat and called swollen lymph nodes. Free them to climb the king pole, burst into the sky, and hit the ground running like lava. Sit your inner child in the front row with plenty of popcorn and watch her face brighten as your tent is cleared, the way an egg sac erupts with the stars of tiny silver spiders. Hold her hand tightly when she jerks to run toward a clown you have started to call John the Baptist. He showed up first with qualities from your list, as if he'd waded into your dreams. He plays in bed like an otter on a riverbank, rips through the plastic armor on your heart with tenderness, offers you the first sip of water in the morning. Still, he is not committed to your circus and cuts your heart nearly as often as its plastic armor. Remind your inner child as she salts her popcorn with tears that the best clown is coming, like the clown from her favorite book, the one he juggled, a rainbow swirling between his hands, tossed the golden ball into the air, last and at the right moment.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
How about one last one?
Okay, yeah. You are so generous, giving me so much time to read. All right, this last poem is titled Turning 30. It was written about 7 years ago. Now you blame no one and nothing, not heat wringing your body, not the crystal ball revealed in your mother's lung, not the caged mutt salivating for coming rain like blood, not the cicada's sex rattle or the trees dressed for hangings, not the man who grabbed your thighs to pull you from an angel oak, not stories of ghosts and first loves rising over the exhaust of hearses corralled out back as gray dawn blows out shadows of leaves across his wood, not the skin you left behind, still feeling for the first time you own every move, ripe with loss as you outlive another death.
Wonderful.
Thank
This
you.
is, I know we both want to hear you read more, but there will be other times. And whoever publishes your chapbook, they are going to be very happy to publish it. This has been the poet, Emily Davis-Fletcher. Thank you.
Oh, thank you both so much. Thank you, Al and Tim. This has been like so enjoyable. I could keep talking, keep rambling, but yeah, thank you so much for your kind words and this time you've given me to share my thoughts and work, and hopefully inspire some other poets out there.